Hello, it's Murphy from the future, popping in from another video to let you know that that Audacity corrupted my audio file for this video, so the audio was lost, so I had to use my internal camera mic, which is less than ideal. So, I apologize for the terrible audio quality in this video, but I don't want to retake the video because I feel like I came to terms with a lot of my feelings about this book while I was talking it through, and a lot of my excitement and passion showed through in a way that I can't recreate. I want to give you the best version of this video emotionally, so I can't give you the best version audio-wise, but you can turn on the closed captioning if the echo bothers you. I'll make sure that it's really accurate. Have a nice day. Okay, so today we are going to talk about The Starless Sea. So this is a fantasy book. And, oh man, okay. So the book starts when our main character, Zachary, finds a door when he's, I think, 11, finds a door and chooses not to open it. That door then disappears and he never sees it again. Fast forward to now, and he's at a library and finds a book called Sweet Sorrows, and when he starts reading it, he realizes that he's in the book and it's about if he had taken that door. So this book is chaotic. So it's split up into 5 sections, and it goes back and forth between our main thread and some side threads, and each section follows different side threads. So the first one is little excerpts from Sweet Sorrows, as well as Zachary, and then the next is a bunch of fables and Zachary, and then the next one, and the next one. I'm not going to go too far into it, but there's a lot of little pieces, and all the chapters are short, so there's a lot of very small pieces and very small characters that are just kind of all handed to you without any context or meaning, and it just has to unfold. So this is a story that definitely needs to be a journey. This is a story that needs to be, I think it's best if it's read slowly and you just kind of don't view it with an analytical mind, but more view it as a fairy tale that you're just being swept away in. So this is going to be a spoiler-free review. We're going to talk about it in 3 pros and 3 cons so that you can decide if this is the right book for you. This is a book that will be very polarizing. I think it's a fairly recent release. I haven't heard very many people talking about it except for just being excited to read it. So this is a book that people, I think, are either going to love or hate. Let's chat about what worked and what didn't. 3 pros, 3 cons. We're going to begin on a pro because a couple of people have mentioned that they don't like that I start on the negative because it makes them immediately not think the book's going to be great. So starting with something great is the world building, or just the world in general. So this is, like I said, a very whimsical world, and the whole setting and the whole environment just feels like we're stuck in a fairy tale. Even from Zachary's perspective, it all feels like we're stuck within this fairy tale that's kind of dictating the rules and where we're to go next. And then when we're exploring the book within the book, or the fables, or whatever it is that we're experiencing at this section of the book, it all feels so whimsical. As someone who loves fairy tales and loves reading classic fairy tales as well as modern day retellings, I love a good fairy tale. I love a world within worlds, Narnia style stuff. It's one of those tropes that just doesn't get old for me. And it was great. I loved the overall environment of this book. So Erin Morgenstern, maybe? Yeah, good job. She is known for being a very environmental author. I haven't read The Night Circus yet, but that's what I hear about The Night Circus. And that is very much the same in this book. So if you're an environmental reader, you like books like The Bear and the Nightingale and Strange the Dreamer, books that really focus on how it all feels more than it focuses on the overall plot or the characters, then this will be the right book for you, because the environment and the feeling of this book is the main focus of this book. However, jumping over to the cons, a negative of this book is the character work, especially in our main character, Zachary. Zachary was a blank wall. He was nothing. He was no one. He didn't exist. He really didn't have very much personality given to him at all. There really wasn't anything that made Zachary anything other than just the protagonist of this book. I have already forgotten who he is because he was so inconsequential. His personality was so inconsequential. His character mattered within the story, but his personality, where was it? That was really unfortunate for me because I loved this world and this concept so much that I wanted to care about what was happening, but Zachary was such a nothing person that I couldn't care less what happened to him. We could have killed him off on the first page or the last page and it wouldn't have mattered to me in the slightest. And that is a bummer to feel. And I'm sure some people connect to Zachary. I'm not trying to pretend that everybody's going to feel the same way as me, but there was no character depth given to him. And so whether you're going to latch onto him or not is going to be a toss-up, because I certainly didn't, because who was he? That's always a bummer for me. I love really great character work. Some of my favorite series have amazing character work, and I loved this world so much that I was so disappointed that I didn't care at all about our lead that we were following the majority of the time. Next pro is going to be, again, about the world and the overall feeling of being in the world, and that is the whimsy and mystery of it. So I already kind of mentioned that it feels like a fairy tale, and there's your whimsy, but also it was written, I think maybe just because we're getting such small little snippets of the world through these excerpts of fables or sections of the book or whatever it is that is happening at the moment, because we're getting such little sections and we're getting no context for those sections, just the promise that this will all connect eventually, it made the book have this mysterious feel to it that it was a weird experience reading this book, because from page 1 to page, there were 500 pages, from page 1 to page 450, I couldn't tell if I liked this book or not. There were so many things that I was loving, and yet there was so much that I wasn't feeling was being executed wonderfully. And so I could not figure out if I loved this book or if I was going to end up hating it by the end. And despite having such mixed feelings about it, I couldn't stop reading. I was dying to pick it back up again every time I set it down, because there was so much mystery wrapped in this story, and I needed to see how it would all connect, and I needed to see if I would end up loving it or hating it by the end. I know a lot of people say that they love it from the first page. A lot of people say that they hated it from the first page. Again, this is going to be a really polarizing book, but for me, I couldn't figure out how I felt about it, because there were things that I was loving and things that I wasn't loving, and the writing in this is very, very purple, and that's not usually my style, but she does have beautiful writing and beautiful lines that would suck me in. But the overall mystery in this story, and not just the mystery, but the mysterious quality of every little excerpt, and trying to figure out how it all connects and who these people are and what their other name is, and all these little things made me so excited to read it, or to keep reading it, I mean. A negative is, whew, this book was chaotic. So Erin Morgenstern, I actually looked up an interview with her, and it's only like 3 minutes long, so I'll link it in the description of this if you want to look it up, or if you want to watch it. But I watched this little short interview with her where she talks about the book, and she mentioned that her writing process is essentially that she just writes moments and scenes completely disconnected from each other, and then she tries to figure out a way to weave it together and to make it into a story. So she had moments of this book solidified in her mind that she wanted to create, but she had no idea how to make it into a story. She just knew sections and tried to make it work. And I do think it felt like that sometimes. I don't think that it's the most flawless construction. I don't think that it's the most perfect way of putting it together. That's not to say that it was bad necessarily, but it did oftentimes feel very chaotic, and I had no idea where we were going or what we were doing, and it's not because, ooh, there's going to be a big surprise. It's because, what's the direction of this? And I think really genuinely, there's not a huge overarching story. We're kind of just being dragged along with the character, and it's intentional, but it's also maybe not flawlessly done. I don't know how to explain that without spoilers. On that note, my next pro is that it does come together really well. Now, don't get me wrong, I do think that it was chaotic and not entirely in a great way, but she does find a way to weave all the little threads together in a way that I found pretty satisfying. Maybe it's because throw me in a fairy tale story with hidden doors and I'm sold. But I really enjoyed watching it all come together and see all the little stories connect and see how it was all meant to come together. It maybe wasn't the most satisfying end ever, but I still really appreciated it, and I was really happy with how it all sorted out, because having all these little individual pieces and having no context and then bringing them all context within 100 pages was fun. I really liked it. My last con is going to be back to kind of the characters. I guess it kind of connects to that. There's insta-love in this book. One of the subgenres for this book, so I feel like it has to be mentioned, one of the subgenres for this book is romance fantasy, or fantasy romance. Hang on, let me look it up. Okay, it's labeled under fantasy, romance, and historical fantasy. Those are the two subgenres that were given for this book by the publishers. And so I feel like because the publishers are saying, hey, here's a subgenre, we have to talk about the romance, and it was insta-love. Now, there could be a case made for it, and I'm not going to go into what that case could be, but the characters meet, and then they have an acquaintance, and then they're in love. And then it's like this intense love. And I believe that there's quite a bit happening off page. There's stuff to do with fate and, you know, meant to be and all that jazz that could be argued about it. But the reality is that for the reader, when we read a book and we don't get to see any development in the relationship, you know, some readers will buy it and some won't. And I wanted to buy it, but there was no development on page between them, and so I didn't feel, you know, their connection and their fight for each other and their need to be together and rescue each other. I didn't feel it because I didn't see, you know, I can't have connected with them, you know? Which brings me to my final thoughts on this book, and that's basically that I think Erin Morgenstern did an amazing job at constructing this detailed and fantastical and beautiful and whimsical and mysterious world that is so cool. She spent so much time in building up an environment that you want to get lost into. However, there are things that she didn't seem to care about developing, and so she just didn't. Like the characters and the building of the relationships. In fact, it's not just the main relationship with Zachary. There are several side relationships too that we just don't get to see develop. They all feel so abrupt, and we're supposed to buy them, but how can we when we don't see them happen? Overall, I have such mixed feelings about this book because there were some things that I loved to the point that I want this to be one of my new favorite books. Because again, this world was unbelievable, but there are other things that I feel like the ball was dropped so much that I'm so bummed, because I want to love every part of this story. You know, I love this world and this concept so much that I want to care about Zachary. He's my main qualm. I want to care about him, but I don't. I want to be swept away in the romance of this book, but there was no opportunity given to do so. I will read more from this author. I'm not usually the type of reader that, you know, give me an environmental read with very little character, very little plot, and I'm sold because I just love the environment. That's not me. But this is probably, of the environmental reads, of the books that focus this much on the environment over everything else that I've read, this is my favorite one that I've ever read like this, and it makes a case that maybe I could love this type of book, because holy cow did I love this world. This is a world that I've been the most excited about over any world that I've read recently in a long time. Wow, that was a terrible sentence. This world has swept me away more than most worlds I've read recently. I'm just so bummed that some of the other elements didn't work out as well, at least in my opinion. Now, I know that some people are like, ride or die, this is my new favorite book, I love this book so much, and I totally see why, because the things that were done well were done so well. I am so bummed at the parts that I didn't feel were developed as well, but I feel it, like, despite its flaws, I feel so much love for this book, because this world, I want to live there. So I really want to reread this book because I think also because this book is so intricate and because there's so many little bitty details, I think that even on reread I'll enjoy it even more because there are things that now that I know what I know, watching them come into place I think will be even more satisfying. So I do want to reread this book. I am really happy that I read this book. This is oh my goodness, so many great things about it and so many things also that I'm so bummed about. But my overall feeling for this book I think is really positive, especially now that I've made this review. I went into this review thinking, how do I feel about this book? I don't actually know. But now that I've talked through it, my overall attitude toward it is really, really happy. So there you go. There's a spoiler-free yet very detailed look into what I think was done well, what I think didn't do so well. I hope it helped you decide if you're going to like this book, if you want to spend your time on it, but just go into it knowing that this is a book that you do have to take your time on, I think, in order to properly experience it. I hope that this helped. If you've read it, if you haven't read it, I'd love to chat with you more about it. Just keep in mind that this is a spoiler-free review, so if you want to discuss spoilers, please do the spoiler space thing so that we don't spoil people in the comments. I post videos every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.